Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alicia and I'm the owner of Alicia Be Creative. Today's tutorial is this beautiful butterfly swirl, and I'm going to show you, of course, all of the steps you need to create this beautiful tumbler. As always, I will list and link all of the supplies that I use for today's video down in the description box, as well as any discount codes that I do have for you. But let's go ahead and jump right into today's tutorial. So we're going to, of course, start this video with getting our cup prepped for the glittering process. So I've taken a 20-ounce tumbler from Hog, and this was actually a tumbler that was previously a sublimation design that I just wasn't in love with. So I went ahead and spray painted the entire cup black, just with a flat black spray paint. And now I'm going to add 3 colors to this to add a swirl. I started with Rustoleum's French Lilac and just did a really close swirl against the cup as like my initial swirl. We'll come back and fix that. I'm now going back in with Ocean Mist and just following that French Lilac color right up against. Now that I'm satisfied with the Ocean Mist and kind of got a general lay of the land here, I'm going to go in with a little bit of white, add a little bit of bursts of white here, as well as do a really short spurt right up against the purple as well, just to add a little bit of white glitter there as well. So I'll now go back, now that I have a general understanding of where all my paint and my colors are going to go, I'm going to go back in with French Lilac and Ocean Mist just to fix any of the swirl that doesn't quite look right to me. And then I'm going to let this dry, and then we can go ahead and move into the glittering process. So the cup is now finished and dry. I've mixed up a small amount of Flynn Sisters Artist Cure Epoxy so that we can do the epoxy method glitter application. I do tend to put my cup in front of my heater, which I have right by my craft table that I use to do all of my crafts. So I'll set my cup there and rotate it a couple of times. It doesn't take too long. 1 or 2 minutes is all you need to really warm up your cup. It really does help getting your cup warm to allow the epoxy to go on so smoothly. You don't feel like you're struggling as much when you're trying to apply your epoxy to a cold cup. So I definitely recommend warming it up either with your heat gun, a space heater, anything that kind of will get your cup a little bit warm. So now we're going to start using those base colors that we did with our spray paint to align where all of our glitters are going to go. So I'm starting with Flawless from Maestra Creations. This is a very, all chunky, very opaque style glitter. So I'm going to add just a sprinkle of this into all of the purple sections. And right now, you guys know, if you've watched my videos quite a bit, that I always will start with my chunkiest colors first. That's just going to give me just a little bit of a start of that dimension look versus just using one cut of color all the way through. So the next color we're going to use is Thicc Tiff from Maestra Creations, and we're just going to fill that in to the Ocean Mist section. Again, this is the chunkiest of this color that I'm going to use, so I don't want to go all in with this color. I really want to take my time and make sure that I am following that painted line and just getting a nice just sort of sprinkle in those areas. Now in my white sections, I'm going to take Harper, which is a beautiful almost silver color, but not. It sits in between that silver and white sort of area on my shelf because it's not quite a silver, but it's not a true white either. But either way, it sparkles absolutely gorgeously, and I think that this was perfect for the white section. Going back in with Pink Corner Creations custom glitter next. But before we do that, I do want to start to very sort of carefully align some of my black sections here. So I haven't gone in with black glitter quite yet. And the reason why I haven't is because black can sometimes take over the cup. So I want to create sort of a barrier and sort of like a subtle color shift in between black, obviously, to the white and the other colors that are on the cup. So I'm taking this mix called Meteor Shower from Glitter Makes It, and I'm just sort of outlining or kind of lining the edges of all of the colored section. This is going to help the blend a little bit better once I go back to adding the black, which is going to fill in all of those dark spaces. So now going back in with Pink Corner Creations, because now I'm ready to go into the smaller cuts of color that I have for each of the colors that we're using. So this is Pink Corner Creations, and I'm just sprinkling again in those purple sections. This is a very translucent glitter, so it really is going to pick up all of the true colors underneath this color, which is going to help it brighten up a bit and kind of make that color of the flawless glitter pop even more. Now we're gonna go in with If You Will. This is one of the glitters from Vinyl Gallery, part of my If You Will glitter bundle that I have over there with Lindsay. So I'm going to follow the thick tiff area with If You Will, which again is that finer cut of that similar color. And we're just going to just kind of continue to build up all of our glitter colors until the cup is fully glittered, okay? Now we're gonna attack and sort of go with our black sections here. So this is Morticia. This is from Batty Glitter, so myramakesIt.com. I will tell you that this is a black glitter that does shift. So it has a bit of a holographic shift to it. So this is perfect for when you want black on your cup, but you want it to sparkle. Definitely a color to grab up. So I'm very carefully kind of just sprinkling this color in the black section. Of course, I want to fill this as much as I can, but not too much that it's going to sort of land in any of those other glitter colors we already have laid on the cup. Now going in with Ice Cream Dream, which is really going to help bring this cup together. I'm starting with it and just going over the sections that are white, of course, and a little bit of the bottom, because we can't forget the bottom of our cup. Really just focusing right now on those white sections and blending it slightly into the black. We are going to come back with this color and kind of go all over the cup because we want it to help blend all of the colors together. Before we do that though, I'm going to take Smog from Peachy Olive Glitters and do the same thing I kind of did with Meteor Shower and kind of just nicely going around all of those glitter swirled sections. This is going to help sort of almost make it look like those colored sections are brighter, because this is a, you know, sort of like a gunmetal gray color, but it really does play nicely against the black and kind of make it look like those sections are sort of brighter. So now, as I told you, we're going to go back in with Ice Cream Dream, and we're really going to kind of just let it go all over the cup a bit here. We're definitely covering up any epoxy that might not have any glitter on it, and we want to make sure we have full coverage with all of the glitter all over the cup. So Ice Cream Dream from Maestra Creations is really just going to help us blend this up, but any opal or translucent white glitter will do this exact same thing. So our cup is glittered, and before I let this cure, I'm going to roll this in my cardstock here, smush down any of that glitter that might be sticking up, and then I will let that dry for a couple hours before I put the first coat of epoxy on this. So my cup only has one coat of epoxy on it currently, but now we're going to go ahead and get into adding our swirls and adding our pigments to the cup. So starting here with 30 ml of Flint Stitches Artist Cure that I'm mixing up, I'm going to use just about half of this to add to the entire cup. So I'm just going to sort of add that second coat of epoxy, if you will, here with half of this pot of epoxy that I've mixed up. And we're going to just let this sit and spin. We're going to let the epoxy just kind of do its thing, let it do what it needs to level everything out while we get our colors together to add to the swirl here. So I have 3 measuring cups here. We're going to use a total of 4 colors. So I'm just going to split that bit of epoxy I have left amongst those 4 cups. Now, I won't use all of this epoxy and all of the pigments and coloring, and that's okay. Certainly feel free to utilize, you know, a mold that you have if you don't like to throw away any extra bits of epoxy to just pour into. But I know I'm not going to use all of this, but I'd rather have enough than not have enough, if that makes sense. So the first cup is going to have Illuminlight's white epoxy dye. 1 drop goes a long way. My second cup is going to be this Violet Luster pigment color from Shop Vinyl Gallery. I'm going to add just a little bit of that there and get that all mixed up nicely. Then into my third cup, I'm going to be adding the Peacock color from Vinyl Gallery. These are all pigments available on her website. We're going to add this Peacock color into the third medicine cup, and I'm also going to add a couple of drops of this Unicorn alcohol ink to just give it a little bit more sparkle. I felt like this needed just a little bit of something, and you're going to see me use that alcohol ink again as we do the second swirl. So then the final cup is going to have just a little bit of black pigment powder. You can also use a black epoxy dye as well. This was just what I had on hand. That is going to give me a true black color. You can use alcohol ink, but be mindful, sometimes when you add alcohol ink to epoxy, it turns green. Black Hole, though, from Jen's Crafted Gems, if you do have that, is a great alcohol ink to use in your epoxy that isn't going to turn green when you add it. So we're going to go ahead and start, of course, with the white swirls. And so my way and method for sort of attacking this, or approaching this cup, I should say, is I am going to kind of start with that swirl section and kind of move around that. So I know my colored swirl section is where I'm going to put all of my decals. So I want to sort of paint around this with all of the pigments and colors, okay? So we're starting with white, and we've just kind of outlined that really large middle section, of course, and a little bit of the spurts of white we have. And I'm going to do that with each of the colors. So with my colorants, I'm gonna stick in sort of the black section, not covering the purple and teal white colors in the center. We're gonna cover up sort of the black section of the cup. That way these colors are going to kind of show up much better on sort of my swirl. Okay, so once I'm done with the violet, we'll go in with the peacock color, and I'm just going to do one swirl of the peacock right through the center of the two purple and the two white lines, just because I don't feel like I need a whole lot of this color. Most of the glitter in the center is mostly teal, so I only feel like I need one good strip of this, and that should be good. So as you'll notice, my cup looks quite messy, but don't worry, we have time to sort of fix this up. You don't have to worry about that. But before we can sort of fix our colors, I'm going to take my black and I'm going to add that to on the inner portion of the white lines. So now we're going to take black and we're going to do the opposite of what we did with all the colorants. We're going to put the black lines of pigment and color on the inner portion along the colored glitters, okay? Because that's going to show best. If I put this on top of the black section of glitter, it's really not going to show up. So we want this to be present on the cup, so I'm going to put that in the colored section. Now I am trying to be mindful that I don't put too much of those colorants in the black, especially over my colors, because I don't want it to take over. But now kind of is our time to play around with these pigments even more, okay? So everything's on the cup. I'm gonna take my heat gun, and just a few passes is just gonna allow my colorants to start to move. I don't want them to be so warmed up that they start to swirl all the way around the cup, but just a little bit of movement, I'm able to push some of those lines up against each other, spread some of those thicker sections out, and now with a gloved hand, I'm just going to go through and pick up anything that I don't love. I'm also now going to take my fingers as well and kind of flatten some of those lines, spread them out a little bit. Some of it is a little bit clunky and a little bit chunky and not really to my liking. So this is my opportunity and time to fix anything that I'm not in love with, or anything that just kind of looks off or just doesn't sit right with me. So this is your opportunity to just like take your time with it. Don't feel like you need to rush the process. I always say add less to your cup because you can always come back and add more lines. So don't start with a whole bunch of lines all over your cup unless you have a true, vision for what it's going to look like, because too much pigment can really become a muddled mess really quickly, especially if you're going to be introducing heat to your cup as well. So after I'm kind of done just kind of running my gloved fingers through each of the pigment colors, I'm just going to kind of let this sit a couple spins. I like to just take a step back and make sure that I am fully satisfied with it before I do anything else with it. Sometimes I'll even walk away for 20 minutes or so and then come back and decide if I need to add anything before I throw away all of the epoxy in my cups, okay? So I'm back after just a few minutes or so, and I decided I wanted to add a little bit of glitter to this. So this color is Valaris from Batty Glitter, so MyraMakesIt.com. I'm gonna add just a little bit of this to the cup here, and this is just going to really kind of bring out some of the black that is sort of disappearing into the background. So this is like a metallic silver stars with a little bit of like black glitter. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's a really beautiful mix. And I felt like this would just add to sort of the etherealness that I'm kind of going for this design. And I'm just taking that and following along that colored section, right? So that center section where my butterfly decals are going to go, that's where I'm putting everything. So now that my cup has been cured after that first initial swirl, I'm going to take the opportunity to, of course, sand everything, really just make sure I have a nice smooth surface because we're going to add our decals, okay? So I've cleaned off my cup and I'm going to decide which of the decals I'm going to use. So I have two decals options to use, and although I loved the pastel ones, I felt like it was too matchy and I really love a true contrast on a cup. So we're going to go with these really fun colorful butterflies, kind of more of the true look of a butterfly to apply to our cup. So I've cut all of these out, and you can find these UV-DTF butterflies on my website. I currently have those in stock. And so now I'm just going to take these UV-DTF decals and apply them to the cup. So I've showed you UV-DTF decals before. My favorite way to apply them is to cut the pieces apart and apply them just however I want. So after I've placed that onto the cup, you just rub it with either your hand or with your squeegee tool. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and pull up the transfer paper off top of that so the decal just remains. I really love to use UV-DTF decals on epoxy cups. It just makes decal day so much easier, I have to tell you. I don't have to fight with my Cricut. I don't have to worry about making sure I have the perfect colored vinyl. Like, everything just works out perfectly when you're using a UV-DTF decal and not having to fight with a Cricut or fight with your cutting software if you're like me and have a love-hate relationship with your cutting machine. So I'm going to continue applying my butterflies. I'm just kind of picking and choosing which ones I feel like are going to look best until I get all the way up around that swirled section. So this is the final decal we're going to add, this really small one. And I wanted to show you an up close look because you're actually going to notice me ripping part of it. And what I love about UV-DTF decals is that you easily can really go back over that section, push that decal back down, and it is perfect. You won't even know that decal initially ripped. So I love UV-DTF decals, in case you didn't already know. So before this goes back on the turner, I am going to seal in my decals to make sure that the epoxy doesn't repel on these with a little bit of Mod Podge. Let that, dry for about 20 minutes or so until it's dry to the touch, and then I'm going to put this back on the turner so we can do the second swirl here. So I'm again mixed up about 30 mLs of Artist Cure epoxy, and I'm going to add half of this to the cup to give it a nice, smooth, slick feel, give it a real good covering and coating. I then will just let this spin for a little bit, let the rest of my epoxy thicken up just a little bit while I wait for this to spin. And then I'm going to use this moon dust from Vinyl Gallery. Add that into the rest of that epoxy there. And I'm also going to add a few drops of that unicorn alcohol ink from Marabou Inks into this pot of epoxy as well. It just gives like a really beautiful rainbowy look, which I think is just going to continue to add to the sparkle that I just am getting from this design. So once that is thoroughly mixed up, I did go a bit heavy-handed on the moon dust because I really wanted the sparkle in this to really show through. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply those sort of strings and lines of this, glittery epoxy around the butterfly sections. And the reason why I do this, I'm doing this again, right, is because for me, I really wanted the butterflies to play into the actual cup. And sometimes when you do a swirl and then add decals on top, the cup can look a little disjointed for me. It kind of just doesn't look like the decals are truly part of the design. It almost looks like sometimes that it's an afterthought. So I really wanted sort of this epoxy to sort of just add to the look and just sort of covering sort of the edges of those wings with the glittered epoxy, just to give it a little bit more of a final kind of look. Now to round things out, I'm going to go ahead and use Magnetic from Maestra Creations here. And again, go around that butterfly section. This is going to allow my butterflies to really pop. And I'm going to, again, really add them into the overall aesthetic of the cup and not give sort of that afterthought. Now, if you don't have Magnetic, you can also grab Daydreamer from Bad University, and that is also a perfect match for adding to this cup. So after this is going to sit and spin for about 6 to 8 hours. Then I will add the final coat of epoxy onto this and let that cure for a full 24 hours. And here is the final look of the cup. I hope that you guys loved today's video. Of course, if you did, give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again in the next one. Bye!